Hey everybody, it's Marty, the JavaScript party, and my buddy Rhett here. Usually she does like a whistle every time I say, and my buddy Rhett here. She goes, but this time she waited, and then I looked. There you go. Good job, Rhett. Um, wow. Yeah, yeah, I agree. So it is 7:47 here in Marietta, Georgia. I'm glad we all run on the same time as opposed, you know, not like we do with temperature. I believe it's like, yeah, it's 38 degrees outside. It's getting ready to rain. And believe it's supposed to be a light rain, which makes sense because I did wake up with a little bit of a headache. And usually I wake up with a strong headache if it's getting ready to rain. So there was a light headache. Yesterday, so part of my job is to sort of understand, like my domain is legislation, like creating how legislation is created. And a lot of big part of legislation, the creation of legislation are meetings. And yesterday there was a meeting about from the judiciary. See, what is no app? Edge does not need to know my precise location. So, and if I don't hit that very quickly, it will go away. I mean, it will just give itself permission. It's really bizarre. But so part of that, so I do watch a lot of the meetings because like things happen during the meetings that I have to sort of emulate or be able to, what's the right word? Be able to record in our application. So one thing that's kind of different about this application than any application I've ever worked at is our job is to record what happened, not to control what happens. So like if you're making code that for loans, like if they don't please the software, the loan doesn't happen. But in legislative software, they're gonna add a substitute or they're gonna do whatever. They're gonna do all the things they're gonna do, and they're gonna do it. Period. Whether the software allows it or not, and then it's our problem to get the software to allow it. And that is sort of like it took me probably 6 months to realize that no, the legislative day is going to happen. Like they aren't going to be like, sorry, we can't start the legislative day and we can't start all of our stuff because the software has a bug in it. No, they're going to have it. And then we need to figure out how to document what happened. And then we also need to share that with the public. But yesterday, so there was a meeting and it was I believe it was the Supreme Court giving their budget for the year. And the Supreme Court of Georgia, not the federal Supreme Court, the Georgia Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court of Georgia. I don't know who it was. It was an older gentleman. He might have been one of the justices, or maybe he's an administrator. He was a very learned, very wise looking elder gentleman. I wouldn't say elderly, but elder, like someone who's probably over 50 years old, who's been working in the industry for 30 plus years, or working in the business for over 30 business, and working as a civil servant or somehow as part of the justice system for 30 plus years. And he was explaining that, they needed more money. This was their budget. There were a few line items that needed to go up. And one of the there was kind of two broad categories, and one of them was for software. So basically, in the United States, we're trying to enact or trying to implement these laws that are going to make our websites and other computing services accessible. And that means that like blind people, deaf people, people who don't have usage of their limbs or fingers or whatever, like all kinds of, there's literally millions of issues. There's probably like literally an infinite number of different things that could be wrong. Like some people, they can only see in a very narrow area, but some people can't see things in a narrow area. There's just literally a million different. The problem is just enormous. But anyways, they have they're aware of two software things that they need to software implementations that they need to update. One is their website, and two is their docketing system. None of this is all public information. This is not something that I learned as part of my job or anything. I just learned it from watching a live a movie that was streaming, a streaming movie that is available of the meeting. So I'm not talking like I'm not sharing any sort of inside information or anything like that. But anyway, so these guys needed money for the docketing system and for the website. I suspect the people who work their website are probably their employees. So they said they only need a small amount of money for that. But then I would imagine their docketing system is a third party, and they said they needed a large amount of money for that. They didn't say the specific numbers, but they just sort of generalized small and large. Now, my guess is that they probably have a few like H-1B or possibly green card people working in the website. I don't know. I've never met these people, never laid eyes. I likely work in the same building as them, but I very rarely go into the job. It's mostly remote, and they probably don't come in very often. But I suspect that if I had to guess, that they are probably like green card folks or H-1B. And it's possible they're like me. They're just like some American that's just having a very difficult time finding work in the industry, but so willing to take fairly low wage. But anyways, they're probably something like that. And so, since it's their employees, they don't have to really do anything for them. And then with the docket people, it's probably a third party. They probably have to pay that third party a ton of money, and the developers, the actual developers that work there, are probably only going to get probably not going to see any kind of raise. They're probably just going to have to work extra hours. So all that extra money they're going to pay into whoever does the docketing software for them is probably just literally just going to go in bonuses and awesome fun things for the executives and directors. Probably not even the managers. Probably just like directors and above are probably going to see a bonus, and then the actual developers are probably going to have to just like work extra hours, or they may have to go find somebody and pay him or her something, but they will probably won't pay much, and they'll probably do it through a third party, and they'll probably pay the third party people like some large number of money, but the actual developer won't get anything. And that was annoying, right? Like listening to that was just like, that's a bummer. But then the second part was truly annoying. Is then they said, and then we need money for recruiting and retention of legal staff. And so that's lawyers and paralegals and people like that, that they are like, our average legal staff person only makes like $120,000 a year, and we can't keep them at that rate, which absolutely makes sense because like we bought our house in 2000 for a very modest price. And now if we needed to buy this same house that I live in today, it would cost a ton of money. So like when we bought our house in 2000, I was earning about 180 to close to 200% of the value of the house. So I bought a house that was worth half of what I was earning. Today, this house is worth like almost 4 times as much as I earn. So clearly, to if someone went to law school and then they've demonstrated that they're good at their job and all that, they probably should earn enough to be able to buy a modest home. And you won't be able to buy a modest home for $120,000. For if you're earning $120,000 and you're trying to raise a family and you're trying to pay for like a vehicle and you're trying to live, you're never going to be able to do that on 120K a year. So they have to give them raises, or they're just not going to be able to retain them. And so, but, and then one of the members, that's a senator or congressman, I believe it was a senator, but it could have been a congressman, I'm not sure, was like, yes, I definitely want to acknowledge that our poor legal staff are highly underpaid, and it's wrong what we're doing, and we need to pay them a fair wage, right? And that's the difference, everybody. Like, software people are products. We are the website. We are the docketing system. We are not human beings. Legal people are not products, they're individual human beings. And so nobody at the state, well, if they were aware, they would care about human beings, but nobody at the state is aware that we are human beings. They're aware that we are products. And then on top of that, if what makes it, a lot worse is that they don't recognize the need to have these skills be sort of homegrown skills. And what's different about this, like I've mentioned before, that I went to Australia and we met a fruit picker who made $40 an hour, which is probably literally 10 times more, especially if you talked about, because she got full benefits and she only worked like 8 hours a day. So if you were to compare like what we in the United States pay for a fruit picker for a full day's worth of work compared to what a Australian gets paid for a full day's work, it's probably literally 10 times as much in Australia. But and fruit was more expensive in Australia, but not double. It was maybe like if a bag costs $10 of oranges here at the time, so like 5 pounds of oranges or something like that, that same bag would probably cost like $15 in Australia. And the Australian one would be much higher quality. So like that 10 times wage paid at the line level to individuals is not the profit that they're saving from paying people 10 times less. 1/10 here is going into profits of people up the line, up and down the line, not in cheaper fruit. And then that's how it's always sold to us in the United States is, oh yeah, fruit would be so much more expensive if we actually paid people, if we had Americans do it and all that. And Americans refuse to do it. But like I've mentioned before, if Americans would be happy to do the fruit picking job the way it's described in Australia. Americans are not interested in going out in 120-degree weather and putting their life at risk for 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day in total, being very, very quiet. I mean, being like I would imagine at the end of one of those 12-hour shifts, climbing up in the tree you're probably very fatigued, and your survival, like your chances of getting horribly injured, are very, very high. So anyways, that really pissed me off. So there's that one thing. And then the other thing is I watched all of the Angular live stream, the last live stream. It's so good. I learned so much from that live stream. But one thing I did enjoy was that they tried to do some live coding in it. And they kept saying it's really hard to code when everybody's watching you. That was not their problem. Their problem was it's actually extremely difficult to code when you're talking through what you're doing, because the act of talking is very, very different than the act of coding, and trying to merge those two up. Like, try tying your shoes and explaining every step of the way while you're tying your shoes. It is so much harder to tie your shoes that way than just to tie them. That's just a really good example where, talking. So anyways, yesterday we ran the unit test. I probably should have done that while I was talking here. Oh, well, we still have it. And we ended up with like 90. I still need to run them though. NPM start. We ended up with like 98.29% statements. And so then I took myself off the hook. I was like, you know what? We're not doing anything. We're going to do with animations. We're going to do animations later, so I don't have to do this. And this happens at work all the time. And it's kind of, oh, wrong one. No. Okay, that was not what I wanted to happen. No. So that happens all the time. Like at work, they'll let you off the hook on something, and then next thing you know, as you're moving through the process, you find out you're still on the hook. And I suspect all of these npm run test, all of these are the reason I haven't hit 100% is probably due to animations. And since I have this requirement that I put on myself that I want to have 100% test coverage, now I still have to go and figure out how to get this unit test working. And then I thought about it. I was like, yeah, I mean, the unit test shouldn't be dependent on the application's implementation. I want to test the units. So I think the path to go is to actually add my own ST animations to there manually in this in here. So like I should just do like a okay, so that's good. And now oh, and then the other thing is, so yesterday I just killed everything at the end of my video, and this there was no way to kill karma at that point. It just kept running and running and running. So and then like I didn't have access to the command line anymore, so then I couldn't. Um, so then I couldn't. So I couldn't delete anything, and that was very. I mean, I couldn't stop it, so I had to like literally shut down and restart the whole computer. That was a pain in the buttocks. But yeah, it seems like I should just manually add these in order to get back up to 100. But just I kind of want to go through the experience that I go through at a job when I realize, oh crap, I thought I was off the hook, but I'm not. So let's go to the coverage. So inside your folder, if you have certain things set up in your package, and I believe, let's go find it, see, test, watch, and then code coverage. So the watch has it, if as I make changes, it reruns, and then code coverage is what has it generate this where are you, this coverage thing. And it's a folder, and then inside of it's another space-time folder, and then inside of here is sort of a list of all the all the tests, and I think it's really neat. But oh, so I thought, so here I thought it was going to be, so it looks like services material isn't getting any coverage, and services match isn't getting any coverage, and animation is in fact getting 100% coverage at this moment. So let's go ahead and click into services material. So app services ST material. So something on the material side is never getting called. Only two statements aren't being called. One function isn't being called. And then in 3 mesh, so that's on the 3 side, two statements aren't being called, and one function isn't being called. And let's just try to imagine what it might be. I can't think of anything. So let's man, Rhett is being very quiet today. I'm curious why. I noticed that all the cats around here, like we have 2 feral cats that we adopted when they were little kittens. They were only like 5 days old, and we raised them up. We gave them the little bottles and everything, and we raised them up. And but they still go hang out with the ferals, but they spend the night in here. And anytime and they've been fixed. But anytime the ferals go into heat, they get super, super affectionate, and they're super affectionate right now. I wonder if that affects their... So get material by ID apparently never gets called. So that should be fairly easy to fix. And then, let's see, 3 mesh. And then we never did catch, oh man. See, this is where things get really, really annoying. So apparently a material, and actually, yes, annoying and incredibly valuable. Actually, yeah, we're gonna have to figure out how to create a mesh that has an array and then delete it. And then update it. So because a mesh and I think that now that I think about it, I think what happens is like when you create a cube, you can have different materials on all 6 sides, and then all 6 sides can have and that different because the material is where the color is controlled. So if you wanted a mesh that was like different colors on different places, it would have multiple materials. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna have to do that, which is kind of a bummer. I think that is some code that is only going to exist in the unit tests. Um, and it's like I was forced to do this because we don't have this situation at this point, but I was forced to do this because TypeScript knew that it could be an array, and so it forced me to write this code that now never gets executed. But it is making me think through this, and so like one of the things I really one of the patterns, or I would call this an anti-pattern in Agile, is there's a huge desire for some reason everywhere to have 2 week sprints. And generally what happens is they'll put the team together very small early on, and then they'll get the team to agree to 2 week sprints. But then as the team starts to scale up, 2 week sprints become less and less viable. And a lot of times, like when you first start, you don't have to do unit tests, or unit tests aren't particularly challenging. But then as this application starts to get bigger, unit tests become more and more challenging, or can become more and more challenging, especially if you have like teammates that aren't really into it. So it becomes harder and harder, and they start adding more and more like, oh, okay, now we need to pass Sonar Cube. Oh, okay, now we need to pass this, and we need to pass that. Oh, we need to make sure the end-to-end test is uh, updated and still runs and hasn't been broken. And they just keep adding things on, but they don't extend the 2 weeks. The 2 weeks just keep staying 2 weeks, and trying to get, once that 2 week number um, has been accepted, it's almost impossible to get them to ever remove it, because what happens is everything starts building around. All the directors all start to set aside time every 2 weeks to watch the things. All the investors are like, oh, okay, I want to see every 2 weeks all the ceremonies and stuff like that. Um, it's just like it's as that 2 weeks becomes more and more ingrained into the organization. Um, and then what's really weird is a lot of times around Christmas time and the holidays in December, you'll get them. You can convince them to do 3 weeks, and the 3 weeks will run so much smoother than the 2 weeks did. Because what happens is that first week is when of course, the BAs or whoever's creating the stories, they try to get you everything, but they always miss things. And that kind of gives you a week to sort of go back and forth with the BAs to get everything exactly the way they sort of envisioned it. And then it kind of gives you a week to make the code solid, and then it gives you a week to go back and forth with the QA, trying to get everything solidified, so that they kind of understand everything. And so 3 weeks works a lot better, with assuming that everybody's working. Now, I have worked at places where, like, if you gave a 2 week sprints, they take the first week off. Literally, they're sick every day. They're taking personal days the whole first week, and then the second week they get to work. And then you make it 3 weeks, and then they take the first 2 weeks off, and then they come back in week 3 and try to get a bunch of stuff done. So like if you have that problem, I don't know what the answer to that is. I don't have the vaguest idea. Some people have, just through whatever life experiences, like to stay very, very busy and like to get things done. And other people, like, have come to the conclusion that, their quality of life is better when they're like trying to, just try, like they enjoy their life, non-work life, a lot. So, they enjoy taking a lot of time off and all that when they can. And, and yeah, I don't know how that works. So yeah, I like to stay super busy. So 3 week sprints work out really well for me. But it doesn't work out for, I guess, I will admit, doesn't really work out for most, particularly youngers. I don't even know if when I was younger, like, I bet you, yeah, when I was 28 years old, I would have done the exact same thing. I would have taken a week off and then come in and try to get everything done. And that other week. But anyways, that was a 25-minute video. It's only 8:11, so I still have 49 minutes before I have to go to work. Happy coding, everybody. So next time what we will do is we'll actually, I guess, probably get that material fix implemented. So at this point, if this was sort of our first rodeo, we don't even realize that we're going to have to do the animations. So it's going to be very, very upsetting. Because one thing I realized is that this code right here, so like we probably need to comment out this code and in app, we need to comment out the app code, the two things that are drawing these things, because they are giving us false positives on code coverage. Because the idea is that eventually you'll be able to start this application. There'll be nothing here, and you'll build up from scratch. You'll either upload visualizations or you'll build them out, and that would be one of those things that sort of what I would call like an anti-pattern, in that a lot of times when you're first building things out, you sort of just get them working, and then you start to bring in together all the things. Well, one day when someone has to pull this down, pull this out, and add a little, and that'll be me, add the 3 buttons, and then you click this, and then you add one, like all the unit tests are going to be, the unit test coverage will be gone, because these things aren't automatically getting built out. And so all suddenly somebody will get stuck with writing unit tests everywhere, and that's a bummer when you are that person. So what I'm going to do before I call this quits is I'm going to comment out all the things that are just matter-of-factly just running these things, and then see what my unit test coverage is, and then I'll have to go into every one of these individual things and write unit tests for that. But tomorrow is, man, this week, I can't believe it's only Wednesday. To me, this week, it feels like Thursday or Friday. But tomorrow on Thursday, I will write a unit test that creates a material, an ST material, so create and then gets that material. And that should be super simple. And then if I have time, if I don't ramble too much, I'll come in here. And this one is going to be challenging. It is weird that it says that a whole function didn't get called, but I guess this here is the function. Which I guess, okay, so this actually, man, just another win for unit tests. Really, this should be a function in itself. Because basically it's the same call in 2 ways. And if there's ever something that I need to do right before I do a dispose, that should be in its own, like I don't want to have to write code between 32 and 33 and then the exact same code between 36 and 37. So disposing is sort of its own thing altogether. So yeah, so then I won't be missing out on a function. So yeah, that's another one. And so then I would only be missing out on probably one statement if I do that. That'll be interesting to see how that works. Because this and this and this are probably statements. And so what I'm going to have to do is add in the unit test itself, add multiple materials to a mesh, and then that'll take care of that. But this did make me realize, oh man, this really should be its own function. Disposing is probably going to be a big thing. And then there's another place. Well, see, there's another place where we do a dispose, but that happens all by itself. So I don't really risk having duplicate code. Like let's say I decide, oh, I want to check something before I dispose. Then if I would have to do that in both places in this situation. The other one where there's only one dispose because it's not an array, that one I wouldn't have to do a I would, if I had to add code, I could add that code right wherever it's at. If I had to add code, it might make sense though to pull that into its own function too. But and then the other thing that you might be very, very tempted to do is abstract this. So I'm going to create some sort of generic dispose function that just disposes whatever gets handed into it. I think that is probably would make the code extremely difficult to sort of understand in the future when you go through and you're like, what does dispose even mean? Like I don't have any context of what disposing is. And then if there is some sort of special thing that you're going to do for materials or you're going to do for lights or you're going to do for some other thing, it'd be very difficult to even grasp what's going on. So that is that. Yeah, I am ready. Happy coding, everybody. Bye.